Hi, I'm Konstantin Baum, Master of Wine, and this one is for all of you out there who want to build a stash of wine and don't know where to begin. I will tell you which 15 bottles to buy in order to start your wine collection. Let's go. Before I jump into this video, if you're new to this channel and want to learn more about wine, then please do subscribe. And now let's talk about your wine collection. While preparing for this video, I realized how incredibly difficult it is to limit myself to 15 wines, but I had to. So don't be mad if your favorite wine is not in the mix. The beauty of the topic of wine is that it is a bottomless barrel and there's always something new to learn, something new to discover, but you have to start somewhere. Today I'm going to start with the wines that you usually drink before you start your meal, aperitifs. Number 1, grower champagne. Yes, everyone needs a little bit of champagne. Lily Boulanger said, I drink champagne when I'm happy and when I'm sad. Depending on your budget, you might just have one bottle on your shelf or your cellar might be filled with the stuff, but you should have some champagne ready whenever the situation requires it. I really like grower champagne like this Maillart, which is a Premier Cru champagne from a small grower. Usually those champagnes are a little bit cheaper and they can be super interesting. And they are also not just aperitifs, you can actually drink them together with food. I love champagne with fish and chips, for example, fried chicken, or maybe even sushi. Second, we have the more affordable bubbles, Cava, Cremant, Sekt or Prosecco. There are also occasions when you want to drink sparkling wine, but you don't want to spend the big bucks. And fortunately, Cava, Cremant, Sekt and Prosecco offer great alternatives at far lower prices. Most of them retail for less than $20 and they can be really amazing. At the moment, German Sekt is really pushing the boundaries. There are some really amazing wines available made from the grape variety Riesling or from the Burgundian or Champagne varieties, and I really like this Karl Schaefer Pinot Blanc Sekt, which I discovered in a blind tasting, and this was the best out of the bunch for me. So this is really complex, deep, concentrated, fresh and vibrant. Good stuff. So now let's move on to the white wines, and number 3 for me has to be Riesling. Riesling has to be one of the greatest whites to put into your collection as it is still fairly affordable, offers great quality and can be stored for a long time. You can get an easy dry entry-level wine or a dry, very complex großes Gewächs wine. You can also get off-dry and sweet Rieslings. You can keep some of them for decades, even longer than 100 years in some cases. And the wines go really well with food. You can pair Riesling with lots of rich and hearty dishes because of this acidity that cuts through almost everything. I really like Clemens Busch from the Mosel, and this is his Marienburg Großes Gewächs from the 2018 vintage. This is beautiful and fresh and vibrant right now, but it will age gracefully over the next few years. I usually like to drink one bottle when it's young and then keep the rest of the case for a little bit longer. If you only have one bottle, then keep it. Patience will be rewarded. Wine number 4 is Sauvignon Blanc. Let's face it, Sauvignon Blanc is a crowd pleaser. When I have lots of friends over who are not necessarily into wine, I open Sauvignon Blanc because I know that most people will like it, will enjoy it. But it's also a deep grape variety if it wants to be. It can be very complex, it can be age-worthy, and it can go really well with certain dishes. I love Sauvignon Blanc with goat cheese or with fish dishes, so you have lots of opportunities with this aromatic, grassy, fresh, vibrant white wine. Sauvignon Blanc is grown all around the world, but this is where it's from, the origin. Sancerre, one of the most classic regions associated with Sauvignon Blanc as a grape variety, and this Le Boucauds from Clos Riffault is just beautiful. It's very fresh, nettily. There are aromas of gooseberries coming through. It's not exotic and exuberant. It's more refined and fresh. And on the palate, there's power and freshness combined. So this is beautiful. Just around the corner from Sauvignon Blanc has to be Chenin Blanc number 5. Chenin Blanc is still underrated, but that is an advantage for you. It's the girl at the party who does not know how pretty she is. It doesn't smell fruity. It smells of whetstones, wax and wool, which might not really sound amazing, but it smells amazing. Chenin, just like Riesling, can produce a huge variety of different wine styles. They can be dry, off-dry or sweet. They can be young and easy drinking, or they can be super age-worthy and very, very complex. For me, the classics are again in the Loire, and this Guiberteau Saumur is just beautiful. It's very refined, very restrained, and you definitely get those waxy, woolly notes that I really love. Number 6 is never restrained, Gewürztraminer. To be honest, I don't drink many aromatic wines, but for diversity's sake, you should have some aromatic wines on your shelf, and there are very few that are more aromatic than Gewürztraminer. Gewürztraminer is the perfume mutation of one of the oldest varietals in the world, Savagnin. It can be very easy to identify in a blind tasting because it really smells of roses, and this wine is beautiful with certain dishes, especially with smelly cheeses like Munster cheese, for example, or really aromatic curries, for example. One of the greatest producers in the world for this varietal is Zind Humbrecht, and this is their Clos Urbain, a great site producing really intense, rich and complex Gewürztraminers that also retain their freshness. So this wine is fairly well balanced, super aromatic of course, but also refined. And number 7, of course, Chardonnay. There's no getting around Chardonnay when it comes to the most important grape varieties. It's planted basically everywhere, and it can produce great wines. Most of the most expensive white wines in the world are actually made from the grape variety Chardonnay, and there's a good reason for that. Chardonnay tastes very different depending on where it's grown, and you can do quite a lot with it in the cellar. You can ferment it and age it in barriques in small oak barrels that add complexity, intensity, richness to the wine, and the best Chardonnays are usually fermented and aged in barrique. There was a time when people got bored with Chardonnay, and there was this acronym ABC, anything but Chardonnay, but there's also ABC, Au Bon Climat. This winery produces great Chardonnays and other grape varietals. Unfortunately, the winemaker and owner Jim Clendenin just recently passed away, but this is a wine that I really treasure. It's the Sanford and Benedict Chardonnay from the 2016 vintage. It is rich and complex, but it's also fresh, vibrant, and it really makes your mouth water. So this is what great Chardonnay should taste like. Let's move on to the reds. Number 8, Pinot Noir. Pinot is amazing, period. It's one of the oldest but also most influential grape varieties, and it produces some of the most desirable wines. Pinot is there for you if you need some intellectual stimulation and if you want a wine that is not rich and concentrated, but more refined and elegant. Pinot is great with game, beef, or even salmon, and it's usually more accessible to people who are not really into red wine because of its more polished, round tannins. Unfortunately, the best Pinot Noirs are getting really expensive, and I have this bottle of Bonneau du Martrez Corton from the 2017 vintage on my shelf for a while. One day I will open it, but I need a special occasion for it, you know? That's not just something that you drink on a Tuesday evening. Number 9 is the good old classic Bordeaux Cuvée. I was a bit sneaky here as I managed to fit 3 grape varieties into one spot. Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot and Cabernet Franc are the most widely used red grape varieties in Bordeaux, and they are great partners in a blend. Bordeaux cuvées tend to be quite rich and concentrated with lots of tannins and lots of structure. They are great for maturation, so you can keep them for a long time, and they can also be great matches with beef. If you have like a medium fried fillet, that is just a beautiful match. They are available pretty much everywhere because they're also produced pretty much everywhere where there is wine. But I really like this one. Lange is one of those producers that I always enjoyed. And this is from the 90s, from 98. So this was a time when Bordeaux was still really lively and fresh. The alcohol level here is at 13%. And this is one of the classics. I'm looking forward to open it. Maybe tonight? Let's see. Number 10 is Syrah. Syrah is one of the greatest red grape varieties in the world, but for some reason it's not really breaking through. Not for a lack of effort, that's for sure. The wines can be really amazing, and they are a bit wilder than Cabernet Sauvignon, for example, with notes of bacon, olive tapenade and pepper. I love Syrah with aromatic meat dishes, for example, goat, lamb or pigeon. I'm right away in heaven if you put a glass of great Syrah in front of me together with a grilled rack of lamb. This is the 2015 Pietra Sassi Syrah from Santa Maria Valley. This is just beautiful. It combines the ripe and intense fruit flavors with spicy, herbaceous tea and like pepper notes. So there's just a lot going on in this wine. And this is basically the essence of Syrah. Number 11, Grenache or Garnacha. Grenache can be an amazing grape variety if it's made in the right way. It can produce silky, smooth, rich and high octane wines, but it also has a slightly more structured, more lively element to it. It forms the blend of many of the great wines along the Mediterranean coast, but it can also be vinified as a single variety and can produce outstanding wines. Today, Grenache is also planted outside of Europe, in Australia or in the US, for example, but I really like this one, the 2019 Dido La Universal from Montsant in Spain. This is a wine for people who don't necessarily like very tannic wines, but want concentration and richness, while also getting some freshness. And this is very cheap for what it is. So this is definitely a wine that you can wow people with without spending a lot of money. Numero 12 is Nebbiolo. In order to like Nebbiolo, you definitely have to like tannins. Nebbiolo can be one of the greatest grape varieties in the world. The only reason why it's not more widely spread is, I think, because it only really grows well in Piedmont. It produces light-colored red wines that can be aged for decades because of the high level of tannins and acidity. So you can just buy a case and forget about it for a long time. Great Barolo and Barbaresco is beautiful with rich and greasy dishes because of the fact that the wine cuts through everything. Basically. This one is La Canova from Barbaresco, a region that was long regarded as second to Barolo, but today there are some really amazing wines coming out of Barbaresco, and I think this is a great wine for its price. It is fairly affordable and it's beautiful. Lucky number 13 is Sangiovese. It is the king of Tuscany and probably the grape variety most associated with Italy. It produces many average wines, but also quite a lot of really amazing, complex, age-worthy wines that are great with food, because Italians do everything with food on their mind. You should drink Sangiovese with pizza, pasta and tomato sauce, or braised meat like wild boar, for example. And I really love this wine. This is Biondi Sandi's Brunello di Montalcino, one of the great classics. And this is an aged version. It's the 2004 vintage, a pretty good vintage as far as I remember. And one day I will open this with some braised boar. That would be a good idea. Number 14, Tempranillo. Tempranillo is the Spanish equivalent to Sangiovese. It grows in lots of different places and it can produce great wines, especially when aged in oak. The amazing thing about Tempranillo from Spain is the fact that they often come out when they're ready to drink after a long period of aging in barrels and in bottle, which is great because you don't have to store the stuff, it's ready to drink. I like to drink Tempranillo with grilled meat, and another advantage of this wine is that it's usually fairly cheap. This is one of the best Tempranillos there is, I think, from Rioja Vina Tondonia Reserva, the 2007 vintage, and I think I paid $25 for it. Cheap. Well, maybe more like 30, 35 US dollars. But still pretty cheap for one of the best wines of its type. And number 15, port. I don't think you need to have a lot of sweet wine on your wine rack, but every now and then it's nice to open a bottle of sweet wine, and I would recommend getting port. Port can be super complex, super intense, super interesting, and it's usually fairly affordable. You get it in lots of different places, and if you don't drink it, it doesn't matter because it's basically indestructible. I don't think that this 2015 Newport vintage port will age as long as that other bottle, but it's a beautiful wine today and it will definitely keep for a few more decades. It goes really well with rich blue cheese or chocolate desserts, so you can play around with that, or you just drink a glass to meditate. at the end of the day. Alright, I hope I gave you some ideas of how to start your own wine collection. I will put all of the wines in the description below this video, and you can go out and buy those wines or follow the recommendation in your favorite wine shop around the corner. I don't mind. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is, which wine did I miss? Let me know down below in the comments, as you surely will. I hope I see you guys again soon. Until then, stay thirsty.